Howdy, 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 my name is Anachi Sasuke, and welcome back to SCP-001 Variety Hour. In this episode, we're going to do Casa de Jacinta, Jacinta de la Casa, and then we're going to do Wrong Proposal. Both of them are kind of long. I don't know how long it's going to take, but when I've read them, we will finally be done with SCP-001, and then move on to all the rest of the fucking 4,000, not 3,000, as I had previously believed. Holy shit. Anyway. Aurelio always drives too fast. I told him as much on the last night I saw him. Do you really need to die in a way that will leave such a mess? It's so unfair to the rest of us that we have to see you like that. His reply was always, to hell with you all, I'll be dead, what do I care? Here he comes on his bike, tearing around the hillside curves as this Ciudad comes into view. He's by himself, and this is worrying me. He's been bringing large crews of his new vaqueros with him lately. Trucks and equipment and tools to the tower. But now? Just him this time. How many are left? Does it matter? The empty city is cursed just as much as it's haunted. The new vaqueros crossing this same river as the old ones. He slides around to a stop in front of the little market, spraying dirt everywhere to the infantile delight of the ever-present Maximo and Ernesto, seated in their pensioners' chairs in front. Why do they find him so funny? Is it because he isn't dead yet? That's something that might be funny to those that grow old, maybe. I wouldn't know. Never got the chance. Aurelio goes inside, and I already know he's getting his traditional six-pack of Quilmes for whenever he visits the Ciudad. All these Spanish words I can't say the right way. The tanned wrecks of old men return to their wizened ritualistic head-shaking and muttering while he goes inside. Maximo and Ernesto sway like two spindly quebracho trees stripped of their leaves, the brief disturbance of Aurelio and his motorcycle giving way again to the wind that always whips through this place. Wind is madness and impermanence and slow grinding destruction. If the planners from the ministry had thought to ask anyone before they built this city, anyone from the plains could have told them that. He's coming back out now, already started on the first bottle. He throws one to Maximo and one to Ernesto. I'm troubled. They're not. They start drinking without any questions. They question everything when you're dead. I miss that. Plunging headlong into the moment of your life without thinking. Not allowed now. I would complain to management if I could. Aurelio stops a moment before getting back onto his bike. What do you think, eh? What's going on in the world now? Ernesto doesn't bother to look up, same as ever. Maximo looks at his fellow scarecrow insulted. His face folds up even more, a scribble of brown lines and wrinkles. Same as ever, you old fool, it's falling apart. Even the goddamn Yankees that's probably supposed to be Yankees, are shitting themselves. They just grew eyes now. It was always there. That's why I told you not to go poking in that fucking tower, Aurelio. No one listens. I wonder what that fucking tower was SCP-2303 is. His words make me catch. Oh, Ernesto, not even you knew what was in there. Aurelio laughs. And when have you ever listened to anyone, eh, Cabron? I am so not Spanish. Ernesto scratches his beard and drinks some more. No one listens to anyone. No one pays attention to nothing until it's hurting them. Just the way of the world. The madness really comes from out there. It leaked into the valley below, dribbling into a puddle down there. You should come work for me, Ernesto. We could use that insight. It's a real growth field, you know. Career advancement, dental care, a receptionist with nice chichis. Man like you could have a real future. Those guys who came with you last time, what kind of future they have? Seems like even Ernesto has had enough joking around today. Aurelio finishes his bottle. Same one we all have, Don Ernesto. On a day like all the others, we lie down under the earth. I never felt closer to you than when you were quoting some idiot poem at a stupid time, Aurelio. You always thought it was so funny how mad it would make me. I guess it was kind of funny looking back. Still makes me mad. He leaves them then, into the heart of the dead city. I watch from my house on the Boulevard of Progress as he winds down the road to the valley floor, where the living in their wisdom made a tomb for the future. He's going to the tower alone, and I am afraid. What will happen when the rest of us pass to the other side of the river? How long will they be? The day where no one is left and every last one of us is alone forever. Line. Aurelio cut the engine in front of the concrete block house. Le Corbusiers shoebox, she always called it. Aurelio's a lady? I thought, or is that just some other person? A house looking like every other one on the street except for the two crossed oars painted above the front door. All the vaqueros had a color. Hers was red, as was his. He kicked his boot at the bike's center stand. The goddamn wind would just blow it over if he used the little kickstand. Bringing its weight to rest atop the stand, he grunted. Getting old, he thought. That's going out of fashion. A howling gust of wind raced down the Boulevard of Progress, cloaked in dried weeds and white dust, and whistling by like a man on a train, knocking everything on its side of the tracks. Fucking bullshit place, he thought. I should have done this at the very beginning. The first of the vaqueros, early in their times their leader, now their captain, entered the square cement house through a square steel door. Little clouds of brown rust spilling out of the hinges to join the dirty wind outside. He stepped into the house. Boarded windows and impregnable walls ensured complete darkness. He closed the door behind him. He opened his third bottle of Quilmes. Or Quilmes, I don't fucking know how to say that! The only thing visible was the outline of the door behind him, dusty light filtering into the shape of a wand square. He could not see his hands. Deathbed conversions are bullshit. Aurelio addressed the black interior of the abandoned house. This is just really bad procrastination. I know you're not there, Jacinta. My mind hasn't changed on that. God damn you, Aurelio. Why did you wait so long? He took a drink, wiping his mustache with a hard brown forearm. But you're supposed to conclude your affairs when you do stuff like this. So fuck it. I've wanted to do this for a long time. For me. So what else is new? I sent off the newer vaqueros, told them to go end it in whatever way they saw fit. Dumbass kids from America and Europe or whatever. So hurt when I told them that. As though it isn't the greatest freedom that any of us will have. They aren't bred from the madness, though. They came to it fully formed, invaders and foreigners wherever these guys go. Oh, bullshit. You love those young men and women, Aurelio. I saw it all from here. The older ones just went home. Eduardo and Mariella and Frankie and the others melted away. I didn't tell them what I was going to do, but they knew anyway. Friends are assholes like that. I saw Eduardo on his way here on his own 2 days ago. I think he would have done it if you hadn't thought of it first, Aurelio. You two were always were like brothers. This is going to shatter his heart into pieces. So now I have to do it. And I'm scared, Jackie, whatever. I have to do this. Talk to you like you're here. Because when the time came for you, you stood. Just like you did for Pablo, Roberto, and Lana, and the rest of us in that fucking goddamn jungle so long ago. I was petrified, Aurelio. I can't even remember deciding to act. Either time. My skin and my blood were ice. I didn't know what else to do. I wish I could tell you this, Aurelio. More than you could possibly know. It's not death I'm afraid of. I mean, more than anyone else is, but it's descended upon us. That's for fucking sure. Like being scared of the sunset. I've waited so long, Aurelio. Why did it have to be like this, where I cannot reach you or speak to you or hold you? I guess the person in the italics is a woman. Every word of this is like dying again. It's taking me apart in ways I can't understand. Please don't stop. I'm afraid of that top floor. I'm afraid of going back in there. It's going to try to convince me to do something else. You are Aurelio Rojas, and you've never done a thing you didn't want to do, you retractable bastard. God damn it, I wish you could hear me now. I wish I weren't behind eternities of space and time and void. I wish we had just left everyone else and vanished into the streets of Montevideo like we should have. I'm stealing what's left of you. I'm using it for my own purposes, reconstructing the dead to fit the spaces inside. I'm going to twist the shards of what I have of you that remains. Grind your memory into something resembling courage, my last crime against you. Aurelio finished the bottle, casting it forth from darkness into darkness. He heard no sound. God, what a fucking obscenity. I hated it when people would go to talk to stones in the cemetery, as good as digging them up. But this is worse. Jackie, I'm sorry. You damn fool, Aurelio. You can't rearrange me. You never could. That's why you liked me. He ran his hands up from his forehead into his thin, brittle hair. The echoes of his voice in the cold tomb house reflected back to him from the walls. The words sounded just a little different somehow in the split second it took to reach him again. The darkness was pulling his mind too far outward. A familiar feeling to a vaquero. It was time to leave. I'm sorry for all of it. Sorry that you weren't here to see out the end of this spiral. I'm sorry that I made it out and not you. But I'm gonna fix all that shit now. Aurelio turned to leave. He found himself standing in place. It fixed him where he stood. The allure of the inner consciousness, desperately crawling and shredding and tearing its way to the waking world, burning everything around it. The allure of death in service to the birth of something, even of something terrible. The longing of the tower. Its pull grew further by the hour. I'm here, Aurelio, and I'm with you until the end. A shadow, maybe, but it's my shadow. I will walk with you. Aurelio Rojas, captain of Mobile Task Force Phi 9, reached his hand to the dimly lit square hanging in the darkness. The door opened, caught by the wind and slamming against the wall outside. The boulevard was a tunnel, a private gale rushing between row upon row of abandoned concrete houses exactly the same as the one he left now. No garbage, no wrappers or papers or cans being blown about by this wind, no signs of living human habitation. Just the white dust of the dead city, the steady erosion that would one day wear down these houses and all the others in the world beyond. He leaned forward into the maddening, breath-stealing winds and started walking. In the heart of the city lay the moldering ruin of its former capital, the place where a group of friends finally found what they were looking for, to their bitter regret. By his side was Jacinta Araya, co-founder of the Vaqueros in life and in death. Unseen, together they approached the tower. The wind has stopped, so still that the earth could shake and swallow us whole right on the spot. Aurelio doesn't hesitate, unlocking the chains across the main entrance and pulling open the great door. Why would he? This place has been his home more than any other, the two of us inhabiting tombs next door to each other all these years. It's an ending I would have written before I died. I follow him across the lobby and I hear whispers. These things, these ideas that live in this place. You don't need any technology to hear them when you're like I am. I must be closer to them now, though they don't speak to me. What good am I to bring anything into the world now? They speak to him. Does he hear them with his own ears after all these years? I suppose if he did, he would have died long ago. Then again, maybe this is something that they've told him to do. No, unlikely. He would have turned the place into an amusement park instead if they told him to do this. We stepped into the elevator, the only pristine, maintained space in the building. Aurelio programmed his own voice into the thing, and so we hear him mark off the floors as we go up. 1, 2, 3. I'm sure he thought that was funny as hell when he did it. Now it's making him nervous. The whispers surround us as we are carried into the top of the necropolis. Visions destined to drive men mad and ignite the vast piles of unseen suffering that surround them. This place is a monument to the first man, who saw the leaping flames of the bonfire and wondered what it must be like to throw himself in. It's a mercy, really. A world that's been going mad long before this, spared the worst of its excesses. The human mind built with a collective failsafe in the middle of one of its many banal errors. Somehow, knowing that it can always be much worse is a necessity of survival. It's a lack of that knowledge that everyone can feel in their hearts today. It's how they all know, everyone, that there's no going back now. Ding! Floor 32. The elevator, having no sense of ceremony, merely opens its doors to the expansive space at the top of the tower. The Grand Hall. Designed for the meetings of the Ciudad's leaders, the Grand Dai at the far wall, hopeful rows of seats facing the empty thrones of the rulers of this necropolis, who never bothered to show up to claim their due. It was here that I stopped being and became this. The space is strangely unmoving to me. Should it be? More questions for no one. I'm watching Aurelio. His mouth is set, but his eyes light up with recognition as he looks out over the hall. I turn to see what he's looking at. I expect to see the man, like we did last time, walking us through our inferiority and the greatness of his apex predator world. Instead, it's a woman, tall and stately in flowing purple robes, an icefall of white hair frozen down over her bare shoulders, alabaster skin like a Roman statue. She's looking back at Aurelio. Her face is wholly unconcerned, but her eyes, so blue as to be white like her skin, so cold that I can almost see Aurelio's breath as he stands before her. A woman with a gaze like a refrigerated hospital basement. Hateful sterility, frigid contempt. A death goddess with no hint of humanity. She would be beautiful if it weren't for her eyes. Aurelio comes to a realization at the same moment as I do. You're from the play, he says. You were here the first time and you were there when the world went mad yesterday. Monashir Violet Light, Lady of the Tower. Didn't realize that was a literal title. In the space of time that it takes him to blink, the woman is 10 meters closer to us. Walking is apparently beneath her. She flickers and reappears. Even before my last night, I knew better than to mistake something like this for an apparition. She holds the same position, same expression. Unlike Aurelio, she does not blink. The impression strikes me that we are not important enough for her to dignify us by moving. Gonna say something? Aurelio asks. You were a minor character. Did you forget your lines for this one? Not his voice, not his face, not his smell, nor his posture change. But I sense the terror's avalanche within him, giving way suddenly from the rocky cliffs of his mind. One of the abilities I maintained from my previous life. I begin to understand what he was afraid of. He blinks again. She flickers again. She's right behind us. I half expected to kill Aurelio then and there, but the hateful woman's statue was looking over his shoulder instead. In front of us are more people. These people move, breathe, are alive. In this place, it is they who are the apparitions. If there was any doubt, it was dispelled by one of the people in front of us now. Myself, living again. In a person's time in the strange realm of the earth, this is the only impossibility. The scene before us is this. The Baqueros, the old Baqueros, are talking among themselves. Things are getting heated. Some of us think we've gone too far up in the tower, that we need to leave now. Leading the opposition is myself. Others think that this is the culmination of our exploration. Don't ever call it research. And Aurelio, with a little more hair and a little less belly, is speaking for this group. They're all shouting now. I remember this part. You've let yourselves be seduced by it. The world is a labyrinth and this is the center. What do we gain by knowing any of this shit? What did we spend all these years looking for? A gyre of points and counterpoints swirling under our feet as we try to make sense then and there of the decade we burnt up in pursuit of the deeper currents. Then and now I can feel the shark circling the waters underneath us. A fish's sense. The electricity is all wrong in this place. Here's where what is happening diverges from my memories. The Baqueros all stop talking. The ghosts before us hold their positions, simulating the movements of breathing, of waiting. This was where Aurelio told us all he was going in and damn the rest of us if we didn't. I can see him, the real Aurelio, replaying the moment in his hard head. The woman behind us speaks, finally, a voice like mist breathing from an icy cliffside onto the rocks below. Cold, slow, half-whisper. She says, choose. Like an injury, a person learns to live with different kinds of regret. Some kinds ache softly in the knees or the wrist, returning for a visit when the rain comes down. Some kinds are a pinched nerve, pain that from time to time prevents you from turning your neck to look back over your shoulder. The wounds we get when we hurt ourselves, hurt others for what we think is the right thing though. Those don't close. They fester, infecting every other decision within you. This day, so long ago, is a knife that has been sticking out of Aurelio's chest. His hand is creeping towards an invisible hilt 3 inches from his heart, even if he doesn't know it. The voice of mist behind us breathes again, a little louder this time. Aurelio feels it like he feels the wind in the forsaken valley outside. She says, knowing all of the things that you know now, Aurelio Rojas, what do you choose? I turn back to look at her. The bitch is smiling now. A neatly diagrammed problem. If Aurelio expresses desire for a different outcome, it destroys him. Every death, every one of his years after that night at the top of the tower is for nothing. The tower, more than anything, taught him what it really is to carry a burden, to be haunted. To renounce the mistakes of the past will pull the knife out of the wound, but the corruption merely spreads under the healed skin. The pain is so great, I can see it in him every time he comes to this goddamn place. But without the burden, the journey becomes pointless, a question to rip a man's soul from his body. If Aurelio makes the same decision again, he undersigns their decision to call us back to their hell. We had an advanced screening of the performance that ended the world yesterday. Knowing what we all do now, does he choose to witness again, to call others to it? He can stand by the certainty that which has led him to where he is today, but the ground on which he stands is falling away by the second. The possibility of his curiosity being akin to complicity, with the atrocity being visited upon everyone, is one that threatens to crush him. This question posed by the tower is forcing a clarification of his situation. Utter annihilation, or unforgivable collaboration? I watched their performance in awe on that night, visions more powerful than anything we had ever gotten with the herbs that we went so deep into the jungle hell to retrieve. A society of indescribable beauty, the inescapable damnation of the planet of hands, the eviscerated nightmare love with which they regarded us. An experience speaking to the deepest levels of human expression, unspeakably alien to anyone with a speck of humanity left. It's no wonder they've tried to drive that from all of us. I was the first to be called. To them it was a reward for finding them first. Come back home, the spectral man told me, eyes beaming with tears of twisted happiness. It seemed the only option, really. The only sane thing to do when faced with such magnificent beauty was to surrender. I could see it in all of us, transfixed. I saw it in me, too. What they saw in me was a way to eliminate the last threads of resistance holding us all back. And beyond that part of me, beyond that part of me open to the beauty of the world and its fine systems was something else. Something older and wiser. Something that walked hand in hand with the darkest fears that we hold. something red. Through tears of ecstasy and joy, my hand found the long knife hanging from my belt, and one fluid motion passed down to me through what is dismissively referred to as the reptilian portion of my brain. I opened my own throat, deep enough that my hands were not enough to staunch the curtain of blood pouring out of me. Blood enough to wash away even the visions crafted by this post-human non-humans. I fell to the floor, weakening instant by instant, my breath stolen by the impossibly gaping wound I had made. The cold of the room passed directly into me, then the freezing cold of the night outside. By the time Aurelio got to me, I was filled with the blasting chill of the black spaces between the stars. Here are the last moments I saw in this life. Half of the Baqueros running like hell to the door, half of the Baqueros weeping with joy as their hands pulled up in front of them, one after the other. Aurelio holding his coat to the ruin of my throat, praying aloud to the only saint he recognized, as though this were not something guided by her hand as well. The cold being followed closely by its brother of darkness. And then no more. The sight of Aurelio faced with this choice makes me replay these moments in a way I have not done since they happened, and I would sooner cut my own throat 1,000 more times than have him assaulted by this hideous suffering once more. I would do it 10,000 times more to be able to help him. I don't know what to do. Aurelio turns away from the past right before us and towards the gloating icy face of the future. His hand is in his pocket. You should have tried this in America somewhere, he says, or some other place where they think they have this shit figured out. He's been replaying the last time we were here, too. I see it now. His hand is moving around whatever is in his pocket. She replies, then you don't make the choice. That you don't make the choice doesn't mean it cease to exist, Aurelio Rojas. The dynamic state in the system is still well within its bounds. We accounted for your truculence in any event. Aurelio's hand moves slowly out of his pocket. From the way his arm is trembling, I can tell that the movement is involuntary. There's nothing in his hand. A second later, a small metal box with a steel switch floats out of his pocket of its own accord. Aloft on a stillborn wind, it drifts away from Aurelio, stopping in front of the woman. She sneers, finally finding something worth her contempt amongst her cattle. She even goes so far as to raise her hand up. Closing it into a fist, the detonator is crushed into a tiny jagged point of metal. It clatters onto the ground. Who is more God, Aurelio Rojas? The cow, squeezing out more life into its petred field, unreasoning, vacant? Or the overseer, tending to the survival of that cow, adjusting the conditions in which it waits to serve its purpose, mending its organs and its flesh when the purpose requires it? The hatred is not warming her voice. Is that what we are, truly, when the mask is off? She continues. Surely even you were not so stupid as to think that we did not notice your kind attaching the explosives. You must have known that your actions are clearly laid out before you even made the decision to pursue them. Meaningless, empty gestures. Ill-considered, petty. Much in keeping with your forebears long ago. The woman in the purple robes raises her other hand. Aurelio rises slowly into the air, held in place by the forces governing this skyward monument to futility that we had been so eager to discover. She spreads her arms, and thus are Aurelio spread open as well now, a hovering Christ mockery. But his face, a beaming calm has overtaken him, a face at home on this impossible cross. The mockery is instead homage somehow. The subtlety is lost on the mistress of the tower, the symbolism of the livestock beneath the contempt of the master. Here's where the final moves of his game are beginning to come to me. His turn to speak now. So much effort, he says, to thwart a meaningless gesture. What does it say, O great Monashir, that you were in this tower with us? Cracks begin to appear in the icy cliffs of her face. This is angering her. Before she can reply, he continues. They must have been surprised, eh? To find themselves in here? Why hide this place? Why let us hide afterward if this is such an enduring symbol of your fucked up paradise? And why do you protect it by meeting me here? He laughs now and she loses control. With sudden violence, she lowers her hands and Aurelio is thrown to the floor, slammed into the dust and debris beneath him. He lands on his side, bones cracking from the force, the breath driven from him by the impact. He coughs as he struggles to breathe again, heaped on the floor, blood beginning to drip from his lips. He laughs again. Still trying to figure it out. The shit you're playing with didn't start with you, did it? His words struggle out through his blood and laughter, no less clear from the effort as his life begins to leak out. No, you've been right here with us, trying to figure out how you ended up on the top floor, why the laws that govern this tower apply to you too. What the flaw in your system is that buried you along with all the other corpses, scratching and clawing at your coffin lid. The purple woman flickers and appears over him as he lies on the ground. Guttural fury leaking from her crumpled face, the hate now fully formed in her dead eyes lit with pyres of rage. Her arms sweep out, and Aurelio is thrown in the air away from her, striking the die at the front of the room, wood splintering, his laughter making room for the groans of pain, unstoppable now. He wheezes now as I rush to him, dead or not. I'll save you the trouble, he says. You thought you banished death, but all you did was forget about her. You thought you enslaved madness, but you merely brought him into your house. And you think saving this tower from us will let you solve the one problem you can't figure out. But I've got the answer for you. You belong in here with us, and you'll never know why. You can't understand. She's over him again. I look up at her from my place next to Aurelio. She's going to end it. He spits blood up at her with ragged breaths. As she moves to finish him, he returns the favor. You forsake death, and death's wisdom is lost to you. You push madness away into the world, but it lives in my heart instead, and you are defenseless. You've blinded yourselves, but the grave awaits you all anyway. Fuck your mother. Horrifying, terrible force comes down from above her, now channeling the fury that has driven her beyond all reason, striking moments too late before Aurelio has laid bare the chasm at the heart of the perfect world that now must reckon with its hidden cracks. Hatred wells out of the fault lines in herself and her realm, spewing out like a geyser, no pushing it back in now. She strikes Aurelio with her fist, crushing his chest, silencing him. I scream with no words or breath. Such things are forever beyond me here. Something catches my eye through the ruins of his shirt. A freshly sutured wound on his sternum. The glint of exposed metal. The last halting breath of smile still plastered on his bloody lips. I feel him looking towards me through darkening eyes. From deep within him, I swear I hear something. She hears it too. The terror of something impending, building within her at Aurelio's words, now seizes her. The madness lives in his heart. It lives in all our hearts, decaying every system they touch, even from our living tomb in the stars. They will never outrun it because we are they and they are us. Dead man's switch, wired in his chest. His heart stops beating. She has just enough time to bellow like a cow in the slaughterhouse chute. Here is the last moment. Deep rumbling. The walls and the ceiling and the floor buckling. Fire. Smoke. Gouts of dust and bits of metal and plaster and stone rushing all around us. Aurelio, borne aloft on a great pillar of flame as the great tomb at the heart of the world's necropolis comes apart. The winds and the sunlight and the wreckage all suddenly of one composition. The purple woman burning for a second before being rent asunder by the uncertainty and death that lay at the heart of humanity. A mortal wound that will be felt 1,000,000 miles away, perhaps in 1,000,000 years, perhaps tomorrow. A funeral pyre that will burn away the dead and make room for the living, even if the dead do not acknowledge it yet. I feel myself rising with Aurelio. Why does it matter when the truth lay outside of time? There is us, there is madness, there is death. And these things we proceed in all directions, blasted apart by the first and last forces, and settling back again. This monument is colossal. Unimaginable error has stopped existing. Eventually, one of these directions must take us to something closer to the truth, closer to balance. Death shows her face once more and guides us to mercy again. She shows her face to me at long last. I am with him in the end, in the sky of a world giving way to whatever the next may be. I know no more. Okay then. And I'm pretty sure that was the last piece of that section of SCP-01. And this is a new chunk of SCP-01, and the last chunk of SCP-01 in general. Notice from the Foundation Records and Information Security Administration. Biannual security update. Item number randomization has been initiated. Until security update is complete, all files are locked. For emergency updates, please access Emergency Data Archival System. EDAS. Maria Jones, Director, RISA. 3,025 items remaining. Item number SCP-01 targeted. One file item with search term SCP-01. File SCP-01 selected. Initiate automated item number randomization. Scanning file for search term SCP-01. Okay. Object class Euclid. The Forbidden City, Peking. Site in which the definition of SCP-01 and ratification of the Forbidden City Convention occurred. SCP-01 cannot be secured or contained conventionally, and it is unknown if it may occur in the future. As such, a reactive approach is to be adopted. Said approach consists of the following chapters of the Forbidden City Convention. Number 1. Prevention and minimization of the conditions of conducive to the possible occurrence of SCP-01 or its equivalent via Forbidden City Convention Chapter 1. Number 2. Management of organizational transition and union following implementation of Forbidden City Convention Chapter 1 via Forbidden City Convention Chapters 2 and 3 respectively. All above-mentioned chapters of the Forbidden City Convention are not to be altered unless via unanimous vote by the O5 Council. Description: it is a successful occurrence of a CK-class restructuring scenario, which generated the current reality via alteration of a previous iteration of reality. Based on first-person accounts, SCP-01 occurred on the 1st of June in the year 1900 Anno Domini of the previous reality. The nature of SCP-01 is such that all causes, events, references, and memories of Occult War I, referred to as the 5th Occult War in the previous reality, are omitted and replaced with various anomalous and non-anomalous parallels in the current reality. Foundation documents regarding Occult War I is obtained from the anecdotal accounts of 13 non-anomalous human beings who retain their memories of the previous reality via a phenomenon coined as partial SCP-01 immunity. However, the mechanism beyond partial SCP-01 immunity is unknown and will not be assessed, as decided by the O5 Council. Efforts to identify additional individuals, if any, with partial SCP-01 immunity are on indefinite hiatus, as decided by the O5 Council. Below is an abridged list of events during Occult War I and plausible analogous, whatever the fuck word, events in the current reality. See document OWI for an expanded list. Let's see. Okay, so description: a global war occurring throughout the 19th century Anno Domini coalesced from 3 separate conflicts in Europe: the Napoleonic War, East Asia, the Davat Conquest, and the American Civil War. It is also notable for overt use of anomalous objects, leading to an IK-class global civilization collapse scenario. Okay. After his coronation, Emperor Napoleon declared Neo-Gnosticism to be the state religion of France and Europa to be its patron deity. Okay, so it looks like in the one reality, this shit happened, and this is the reality of what actually happened. American Civil War. A civil war between the United States of America and Confederate States of America. Both factions were supplied weaponry from a group named the Factory. The war gradually spread to Mexico and Central America following relocation of the Confederate government. No factory involvement identified. The American Civil War did not escalate beyond the continental United States. Okay. Vatican Holy Office, East Tennessee Convention, Tombed Massacre? The cause and origin of SCP-01 are unknown and cannot be ascertained. It is unknown if SCP-01 or its equivalent have occurred prior to its known occurrence or may ever occur in the future. Additionally, it is unknown if SCP-01 represents a typical or atypical occurrence of a CK-class restructuring scenario. In the event that SCP-01 or its equivalent has occurred or will occur, it is speculated that a majority, if not all, of mankind and or sapient entities will have no recollection of them or the events prior to the moment of occurrence. It cannot be ascertained if partial SCP-01 immunity is applicable to the future occurrences of SCP-01 or its equivalent. The definition of SCP-01 was finalized by the O5 Council on a 5-4-4 vote, and the Forbidden City Convention was ratified on the 7th of September in the year 1901 Anno Domini. Excerpts from the Forbidden City Convention. Chapter 1, The Foundation. The following organizations are to be dissolved and disavowed from their respective patrons, and their personnel resources are to undergo merger. Her Majesty's Foundation for the Secure Containment of the Paranormal. Estate Noir. Czars Sears. Imperial German Anomalous Matters Examination Agency. American Secure Containment Initiative. Imperial Commission on Transgressive Occurrences, Royal Office for Christian Artifacts, Special Investigations Board, Dutch East Indies Company, Inter-Africa Expeditionary Society, the Knights of the Military Order of Broha-e-Aragon, Bureau of Anmio, Abnormality Institute, and Zeroth Anti-Cult Regiment. In their place, a unitary organization is to be established. The mission of this unitary organization is to secure and contain various anomalous objects in order to protect mankind from said objects. The referent for this unitary organization is agreed to be the Foundation. The following alternative referents, i.e. Institute, Organization, and Front, have been proposed and rejected. The aforementioned 13 organizations in which the Foundation is formed from henceforth designated as Foundation Precursor. Chapter 2, O5 Council. The Provisional Executive Administration of the Foundation consists of an Executive Council composed of 13 individuals from each of Foundation Precursor. The aforementioned 13 individuals of this Executive Council were selected due to the following criteria: leadership position in respective Foundation Precursor, possession of memory regarding Occult War I, Future members of this executive council are not required to possess both of the above-mentioned qualities. The referent for this executive council is agreed to be the O5 Council. The following alternative referents, i.e. Overseers Committee, Level 5 Council, and O5 Command, have been proposed and rejected. The function of the O5 Council is to facilitate initial transmission from Foundation precursors. Each O5 Council is designated with a Roman numeral ranging from 1 to 13. Other organizations merged into the Foundation henceforth are to be denied representation on the O5 Council. Chapter 3. Organizations with awareness of anomalous phenomena that are not subsumed under Foundation control are hereby designated as groups of interest. The Foundation's default approach towards groups of interest is to pursue their dissolution, termination, and/or assimilation of their personnel and resources. Addendum 0513, succession note regarding SCP-01, file displayed as dependent on logged-in O5 account. Blah 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 blah. Code Howling Black Moon. Welcome, 051, to my successor. As the main editor of SCP-01, I have already written all that you need to know. After SCP-01, only the 13 of us knew of it, and we each stood at the height of our respective precursor organizations. Certainly, we were fated to take command and unite as the Foundation. Okay, I think it's just gonna go through all 13 of them. Okay. As you can tell from the votes, there were two other alternatives for SCP-01 in our debate as Foundation. To my successors, Santayana once said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Now, the world as a whole cannot remember the past, but does it repeat itself? Yes, it does. During the Second World War, was there not another authoritarian dictator terrorizing Europe, and were the Chinese not massacred again? Of course, the details differ, and America kept itself together throughout that war. Maybe that civil war occurred again in your lifetime and will occur soon. Or maybe that scaled-down skirmish was it. That still leaves the factory, but it is elusive. The product of an anomaly should be an anomaly in itself. SCP-01 and this world are no exceptions. Piece by piece, the world is undoing and repeating itself. For every SCP not, if not minimally, in our control, the process is ongoing. Until then, there will be chaos in the system. Once I proposed that we guide the world back to its original state, but the others disagreed in favor of establishing tyranny. Ultimately, I acceded. There is no need for to fight for my views. Nothing will change the process. No action is needed except to wait. Or in short, Keter. Okay, 053. Anomaly and normalcy. Both are subject to the consensus. Today's anomaly might have been yesterday's normality, and vice versa. The Scandal 9 discovered is one such example. However the hell I say that, is no longer anomalous when the consensus decides it no longer holds water. Apply the consensus onto SCP-01. To the rest of the world, the occult wars do not exist. They exist only to those who know the anomalous. To those who knew the anomalous, occult war I does not exist. Only 13 men imagined it to exist, and that could have been SCP-01. However, the Council established our own consensus, and my opinion shifted to that when it was announced. More of us decided that we should establish order over all anomalous matters instead of suggesting that we might be the problem. That would only be the first of many consensuses reached, where we held influence over the world's conceptions of what is normal and what is not. Perhaps they resulted in the world you've grown up with. Thus, remember these. Consensus has value, and to be normal is to abide by the consensus. 054. I am one of the few who fought in the front lines for both Fifth Occult Wars. I was gravely disappointed by the official Fifth Occult War, which was more accurately a skirmish. Those boxers simply can't compare to the Divites and Clockwork Worshippers. Even after turning almost every other agency and cult into our enemies, the Wainscot Society cannot compare to Total War. Perhaps it's the youthful bloodlust in me talking. It's a frequent quirk since SCP-01 happened, like during Peking when I voted for Two's proposal out of impulse. I didn't care for his strange theory, I only wanted to fight on. So many sacrifices were made already, and I have made significant sacrifices as well. They cannot end in quiet days. But now I'm old and quietness will come for me. But you were here to fight on. Make sure that it does not end in quietness. 5-5. You know now that the world was once averted from total destruction due to an uncontrolled event, and because it is uncontrolled, we cannot guarantee it can work again. Or if it would be in our favor, we should not rely on uncertainties like SCP-01. As a species, we have mastered and stomped on all of the beasts and lands of the world respectively. Many crafts are now mastered by man, crafts that were once dreams. The restoration of the world is simply another thing to be mastered. If the world can rewind itself, we can do it too. By combining our resources, the magnum opus I envisioned, which is SCP-2000, can still be reality. It might have been utilized already, or construction is still ongoing, but SCP-01 will be irrelevant when it's ready. By our will, mankind rules eternal. 056. We agreed that SCP-01 happened, but we don't know if it is the only time it has ever happened. Could it happen again? Must the world be near its annihilation for it to work? How much is it enough? What about transreality memory retention, a more accurate term than that ill-defined compromise? How does it work? Why only us? Can it be replicated? The list goes on. This unusual phenomenon's level of uncertainty surely necessitates quantification. Euclid is a reminder of that conviction, that more should be known about SCP-01. I suppose you would have that drive cultivated by the Foundation's advocacy for scientific methodology. Containing and protecting cannot be the ends, knowledge is. But the majority of the First Council was too afraid to probe and want to either abandon it or be preventive. Neither solves the problem, really. But you can do your part in solving it. Only you can see this and have access to however little I can find out, so let that be your starting point. May you deliver results and bring meaningful data to SCP-01. 057. Officially, only 13 people were immune to SCP-01, but there is another, Jibril Manny. He was a consultant working for the Sublime Port, and we met when I took refuge in Constantinople due to Napoleon. He was most hospitable. We became fast friends despite the traditional enmity between Christendom and Dar al-Islam. We stayed with each other until the occurrence in SCP-01 where I found myself in Rome. In the current world, he managed to contact me, and I knew he remembered our friendship in the lost past. Meeting him, we spoke extensively about our memories of Occult War I. I invited him to join me in an upcoming gathering in Peking with other men who remembered the war, but he politely declined. Jibril would rather defend his friends and clansmen, especially when we knew that the Middle East was in chaos then. He was skeptical towards one and his affiliation, but I could not blame his suspicion and respected his wishes. We parted ways since then. While I took on the title of 057, Jibril took me he would return to Iran to gather allies for his cause, which apparently is Oriya Hub. Just as he desired to protect his loved ones, my obligation is to the world and I will defend it. P.S. Out of respect, I have decided not to report to the Council about Jibril. I do hope that whatever organizations Jibril and the Council built in the end will not clash. We only wish to protect. 058. As you can infer from the votes, there were 3 choices that ultimately led to SCP-01. One's proposal was really the only option. The others were stupid. 2 essentially demanded us to be anarchists, while 12 assumed we were just a bunch of lunatics who needed an oriental drug. No thank you to either. Most of us have been collecting anomalous objects to begin with, so the Foundation is not much different from at least half of its precursors. As for the other half, the groups of interest will have everyone on the same page. You should keep doing this job for quite some time, so I expect you to keep it up. 059. SCP is the restructuring of reality. That is our consensus. Therefore, it is reality bending. 2 claim that reality will inevitably revert to correct the world, which is similar to Scranton's famous address on the topic. That being said, the latter insisted that reversion would be caused by the reality bender. It might be hard to control sapient beings, although some scholars believe that an engine... Grant request for the manufacture of devices. Okay. An engine may theoretically increase the probability. This prospect brings hope that the greatest known act of reality bending can be reverted. And when it happens, the world might revert to its previous state, complete with my home in the African Free State, where the IK class scenario did not really apply. It might as well be the previous world's only safe haven. That stability was lost after SCP-01, and I ended up working in a less hospitable setting. Even though I was not favorable to one's concept, the Foundation is by far a better environment. It is also a good place to figure out how to realize Scranton's ideas, or at least invest in someone who can. Despite the money and subjects I have supplied, progress has been slow, and I have come to terms that I might never regain my losses. But you can, should SCP-1 ever happen again. You should continue the research in whatever way you can, because you shouldn't be like me and lose that which is yours. No one deserves that. 0510. There were 13 groups that started the Foundation, but not all of us stand equal. Take 12's Abnormality Institute, unendorsed by the Quing. King? Quing? I don't know. Probably King. But Mine is similarly in decline. Our namesake was a witch hunter, but none of us actually met a real witch. An interest group was a more accurate description for the Borja Knights of the late 19th century. If not for the memories I had of Occult War I, it would have remained that way. When one spoke of his great scheme, I have my doubts about fighting the anomalous. Each new generation of knights is a shadow of the previous, and it shows. In Occult War I remember my knights being annihilated by Napoleon's clockwork soldiers. They were, and are, not ready for an occult war or any fight against demons or sorcerers. To submit to one's proposal would have meant gruesome deaths for them again. As their Grand Master, I would not send them to their deaths. When the vote was not in my favor, I briefly considered to not oblige to the terms of merger. That thought perished while I heard 8's proposal to foster the unity of our newly dubbed foundation. After that, I decided my knight should at least die meaningfully against monsters rather than as a sacrifice. All of us die eventually. Make it meaningful for those you hold responsibility over. P.S. All things considered, the resources from the other precursors did ensure that the last generation of knights will be better than the previous batch. 0511. Congratulations for your service to the Foundation. I imagine that you have to climb the hierarchy to reach this position, unlike I, who was granted this position by virtue of being the first. Your virtue must be astounding, unlike mine. During the Occult War I, Kyoto fell to the Davites, Emperor Kome, and most of the council were killed. The shogun and his agents only fled to Itzo, whatever. I'm not Japanese either. I was among the few to have left Kyoto alive, but only because I feared for my life. I ultimately regretted my choices and shame overtook me. Not even death liberated me. At least Emperor Kome passed away in a less violent manner in this new world. This brought me to my vote at Peking. That we were hallucinating and the amnestics will cure us. Actually, I only want to forget. But the consensus was reached and I am not allowed to forget. One insisted that we were fated to work together, and no one else shall stand alongside us in this council. At least it was tolerable knowing there were others like me. 3, 7, and 13 were very positive influences. My successor, I know not your colleagues in the O5 Council of your time, but they shall be your sworn allies, remember that. 0512. I'm sure you've heard of amnestics, and I'm sure that it has been improved over the years. SCP-3000, I guess that's some sort of amnestics. But the origins of amnestics as a whole is one of the many secrets of the Foundation. I will explain it. Amnestics was originally a secret of the Meng clan of alchemists. I married one of the clan's women to claim the right to make it. Originally, I wanted to cure myself of a series of disturbing visions which we now recognize as memories of Occult War I. Before I could prepare the concoction for myself, 11 contacted me and told me of similar visions. Soon I gained knowledge that there are more men who experienced the same vision that they intend to meet at the capital. As a physician, it is my duty to see everyone's recovery, and I attempted to convince them that it will be safe if we take no unnecessary action. Most of them disagreed with my views, so they insisted on a democratic vote as per the ways of the West. Needless to say, my views were rejected. But not amnestics. 5 concluded that it is useful for it can revert memory, vaguely similar to SCP-01. Thus, amnestics stopped being a cure for the illness I had proposed, but to cure the common folk of any knowledge of the abnormal. Unfortunately, Matriarch Meng did not approve of the foreigner's theft of her clan's secrets, and the Meng clan was one of the earliest groups of interest we faced. Their fate were as the Boxers were, although a junior or two might have escaped to Hong Kong with what little they knew of the formula. SCP-484. Please be of use to the Council, but if you have earned this position, you should be of use. 0513. SCP-01 said that only the 13 leaders of the precursors were immune from its effects, but that was incorrect. There were only 12. One and I have known each other for decades, and I owed him a lot. Naturally, when he asked for a tiebreaker vote, I obliged. He filled me in on the Davite incursion in India to complete the deceit. When there were things I did not know of, I'd blame it on the British's unwillingness to be open with my regiment. I suppose you might be ashamed of the title by now, but if not for me, I dare say we might have 3 different foundations at war with one another. For me, it was an opportunity to be treated more seriously by the Europeans, and I took advantage of it. Since then, I've made many amends so that others will not end up in my situation. Thus, promise me that you vote according to your will, not by another's. Okay. Scan complete. 40 instances of SCP-01 identified. Initiating random number generation. Okie dokie. So, finally done with SCP-01. Let's go back past the kill thing. Yes, finally. Okay. So, this has been Anashi Sasuke. This was finally the end of the SCP-01 Variety Hour. In the next episode, we get to start on the rest of them! Ha ha! So, thank y'all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Later.